now. Welcome again, everyone. My name is Dave Kid, and I am so excited to be talking with you about the 1,000 Households Who Mulch pilot project. Thank you for participating in it, and thank you for taking a little bit of your Thursday evening to join us and hear a little bit about the genesis of the program and also how to participate fully. I want to tell you a little bit about who we have joining us here tonight. As I mentioned, my name is Dave Kid. I'm the Director of Innovation for the City of Bloomington. We also have Christy Lindberg. She is with our City of Bloomington Utility Stormwater, and she will be available after the presentation to talk with you about stormwater grants and adopt a drain programs. We also have Joe Winnia. He's from the Citizens Advisory Committee for the Monroe County Solid Waste Management District. He's been a really key member of some of our subcommittees that are leading this project. We also have Jillian Fields. Jillian, if you want to wave. If any of you have been involved at all in anything having to do with invasive plants in Monroe County, you know Jillian. She's coming to us from the Monroe County Identify and Reduce Invasive Species, also known as MC Iris. Jillian is also on one of our subcommittees for this group. And we also have Andrea and Ryan Conway from Earth Keepers Bloomington Compost. They've got their yard sign going up there. They are one of our project partners, proud project partners, and we'll talk a little bit about that right now. Our most important project partner is you. We couldn't do this without the residents. Our city council has been talking about the possibility of experimenting whether or not composting and mulching could displace some, if not all, of our vacuum leaf collection service. Now we are making history. We're actually doing it. So we could not do it without you. We couldn't test this out. Of course, the Office of Innovation, Public Works is our sponsor for this, and we also have Parks and Rec and the City of Bloomington Utilities as partners, as well as all of these other amazing members of our community. I mean, just look at that level of participation. We have some independent companies, we have Indiana University's farm, we've got a bunch of nonprofits in there, and we've got some county representation as well. I'm really proud of the diversity of the participation that we've got from our community. So tonight we are, for the first 20 or so minutes, I'm going to give you a little bit of background on the project, what you can expect as a participant in terms of how to contribute, and then also how you'll be supported through this. And we'll talk about the next steps after you've been given that introductory information. From about 7:30 to 8, we're going to field questions from you. So we're hoping that the bulk of our meeting tonight is going to be questions coming from you. At any point in the presentation, you can enter your questions into the chat. We have Sarah Miller, who's the innovation intern. She's out there in the Zoomosphere, and she's going to be collecting your questions and putting them into a separate sheet for us to be able to answer for you. For safety reasons, some of the things that we've learned during the pandemic is just to be really careful with who we allow to speak during an online meeting. So we'll be collecting your information and we'll be responding to those we'll respond to the questions that we've collected from chat. And if we've got some extra time, hopefully we'll be able to hear from both Christy Lindberg about stormwater and adopt a drain, and also from Jillian about MC Iris. So a little bit of context. Bloomington is a proud tree city. In fact, in 2021, we were named a Tree City of the World by the Arbor Day Foundation. And what that means is we got a ton of trees. And when you have a ton of trees, you got a ton of leaves, and they need to be managed in some way or else they end up everywhere. Our current way of managing leaves is to collect them. to take them off of properties and do something with them. So we vacuum them or we accept them from bags and bins. Why do we need to change this process? Well, one is money. Back in 2018, when Public Works was presenting their budget to the City Council, a couple of City Council people zeroed in on how expensive it is to operate the vacuum trucks, how much overtime we spend on this, and how difficult it is to find and keep labor to do this very, very hard work. Additionally, the work is being done by diesel trucks. The vacuum trucks use diesel and they emit a lot of greenhouse gases, and that's not in keeping with our goals for our climate action plan. Also, we'll talk a little bit about how this project came to be and some of the groundwork that we did for it. But one of the things that we did in 2020 was to release a survey to residents. 381 residents took the survey, and 60% of them said that the timing of the current vacuum collection system is not where they would like it to be. So 30% said the vacuum trucks arrive too early in the season, even sometimes before the leaves have fallen. Another 30% said they come too late. The leaves have already fallen and frozen in place and killed all my grass. And then of course, 30% said, it's great, leave it just like it is. But in the meantime, as leaves are raked to the edge of a property, a passing bus or a bicyclist or car can suck them into the road, to the sidewalks, into the storm drains. And so keeping them out of the roads and the sidewalks, and of course out of the storm drains, is a big goal. And unfortunately, this is a picture of our dear Kirkwood Avenue just this year, the flooding. And mulching and composting would not have stopped this flood. However, I do want to make the point that our leaves, when we are able to mulch and compost them, they act like little sponges, and they can capture some of the increased water that we know is going to be coming as a result of climate change, and also keeps leaves out of storm drains so that our systems can work a little bit more efficiently than they do now. In addition to all of those reasons for wanting to shift, there are a couple things that we already know about mulching and composting. It creates a supportive environment for our pollinators. And ever since Jerry Seinfeld did the Bee Movie, people became more and more aware of how important it is to have pollinators in our ecosystem. It's free fertilizer. It can help you control weeds and also help improve your soil health. It can reduce the spread of invasive seeds. I mentioned before, it acts as little sponges and slows the flow of water to storm drains, and also keeps the leaves out of the storm drains so that they're not clogged. And I get the opportunity to work with our Assistant Director of Sustainability from time to time, and something that comes up often is that climate change feels so huge, so overwhelming. And mulching and composting is one thing that we can do. Some people ask, well, what can I as an individual do? This is actually one of those things that we can do. So once the City Council said, hey, can we look into this, the cost of this, and the fact that it's not really aligned with our climate action plan goals for the city, then the mayor, the deputy mayor, and the director of public works came together and said, hey, this might be a good innovation project. So in February of 2020, we started some research by interviewing all of the staff members that are currently not only operating the vacuum trucks, but also the yard waste that collects those bags of yard waste and carts. In March, we unfortunately had to stop our process because of COVID and pivoted to that work. And then in July of 2020, when we came back, not in person, but we came back to this work, we we distributed that survey that I was talking about with 381 residents and collected information about that. We also looked around to other cities around the nation who are similarly leafy to us. And we asked, what are you guys doing to manage your leaves? We also, some of you may have participated in some of these. In September, we had community engagement meetings where we took all of the information from the survey and from the interviews and from the research that we had done with other cities. And we had really generative conversations with our community about what might we try. And from all of that information came these prototypes. There were 4 ideas that we thought might be doable. So we engaged with a couple of households and we said, hey, let's try this out. And a couple of them just fell flat on their face. They were total failures. But 2 of them, mulching in place and composting, and then putting the excess out in yard waste bags, seemed like it would be a doable idea. So we created a pilot with 22 households to mulch and compost as much as possible, and then put the excess out in yard waste bags. The 22 household pilot was largely successful. About 60% of the participating households were able to mulch and compost 100% of their own leaves in their own yard. The other 40% still participated in the program by putting the excess out in yard waste bags, but they said that they filled many more yard waste bags than what they would like to fill. So we identified one barrier, which is that some folks may need some help raking and bagging their leaves because understandably, raking leaves into a bag is more difficult than raking it to the edge of your property. And we also heard from people that they would like more information, especially if it's information that's specific to Bloomington about tree species, about what can and can't be composted. They just needed a little bit more hand holding. Some of the additional findings that came out of this, some unexpected things, were that neighbors started helping one another. There would be a pilot yard sign in the front yard, and another neighbor would come by and say, "What's that yard sign mean?" And when the person would tell them, then they said, "Wow, I'd like to try that too." And they started helping one another. I heard a story because during that 22 household pilot, I was issuing weekly surveys to ask the participants, how's it going? What's working? What's not working? What are you finding? And a couple of households said, I saw that my neighbor was starting to rake and I told them, I've already got this huge place where I'm composting things. Do you want to just use mine? And so these kinds of connections started happening. And one yard next to another is what it takes in order for us to create this kind of change. And that brings us to this year. So while we thought that the 22 household pilot was largely successful, if we tweak a couple of things, it was still just 22 households. And so in 2021, we said, let's try this on a larger scale. And that's when we invited you to join us in this experiment. So your challenge is to mulch and compost as much as you can in your yard, or as I said, as we found out with the 22 household, maybe offer them to neighbors or accept them from your neighbors. Use yard waste bags only for what you can't mulch and compost in your own yard. And then put yard waste bags out for sanitation on your regular yard waste collection day. If you don't know what your regular yard waste collection day is, then you can go to bloomington.in.gov/mybloomington. It's a great app that we've got that where you can type in your address and it gives you lots of great information like who your elected officials are, where the closest park is, and information about recycling and sanitation as well. If you still need leaf pickup in December, one other thing that we're trialing as part of this project is a free on-demand vacuum pickup. We didn't want to incentivize this at the front end of this because we're wanting to see Is it possible to displace the vacuum collection as much as possible? But we also recognize that there may be extra leafy yards and they may enjoy this end of season collection option. What can you expect in terms of support for or during this program? We have an online library, which is a section of the project page at this URL. And I'm going to quickly go over to our website. And team, are you seeing the, okay, great. I'm getting a thumbs up there. This is what I'm going to refer to many, many times over as the project page. The URL is bloomington.ion.gov/innovate/2021-leaves. This is a little bit of background about the program. For any of you who have been visiting here, you can click here to see how well we're doing towards our goal, which is great. We're over 25%. I love it. You can also check to see the live updated chart of participating neighborhoods. This is also really interesting. So look at this. Park Ridge East has 35 participants now, which is amazing. Prior to this week, Bryan Park was in the lead, and look at that with 21 people. We've got a number of different neighborhoods, Arden Place, Blue Ridge, Broadview, Elm Heights has been a contender this whole way through. So this is where you can go to check and see, how is my neighborhood doing, and can I cheerlead a little bit more enthusiastically to get more people involved? The section that I really want to hone in on, though, is the library. The library is open, and we have a number of different resources here. The first one that is kind of the brain or the spine of everything else is the FAQs of mulching and composting. So when you go here, anything that you could possibly want to learn about mulching and composting is here. We have some PDFs, we have videos, we have infographics like this one. So this is a really great place to go and look for support options, as well as lots of other things. I'm going to go back to our, if I can, there we go. So that is our project page. So when you hear me talk about the project page, that's what I'm talking about. So it has the baseline survey, the FAQs that I showed you. It also has information for joining a closed Facebook group. And this is something that was a request by a resident. They said, would it be possible for us to have an electronic way to have that peer-to-peer connection, whether that is for sharing knowledge and experience, or whether that is saying, I've got some extra leaves, would anybody like them? Or I would like to take some extra leaves. This is the way that you can do that. It also has a calendar for hands-on demonstrations. If you remembered in the 22 household pilot, we found that there were people that wanted more training, a little bit more hands-on training and education. This is one of the ways that we're offering that. And so you can access a calendar of when those demonstrations are happening. There's a request form if you want an individual yard consultation. If you're not sure where to put a compost bin or where to even start, you can request the services of a yard consultation. We're also working in conjunction with the Soil and Water Conservation District of Indiana, trying to get soil health assessments. They offered this, and we're still trying to work out the logistics. So that's something that we may also be able to offer. There's a request form for yard waste bags and yard waste bag holders. If you know in advance that you are going to need these, or if at any point during the program you realize, oh, I need some yard waste bags, or I would like a yard waste bag holder, then there's a form on there for you to request that. You can also request assistance with physical help with raking and bagging. We're partnering with a couple of nonprofits in town to offer volunteer assistance for this, just to try it out and see if that's something that could be sustainable for the future. And then finally, the request form when it comes time in late December, if you would still like that on-demand option, then you can request that there as well. There are some pretty tasty perks for participating in this. The first of which is any participant all the way through the end of September 1st, you get a half off of the Earth Keepers compost drop off. That's the period where that perk is available is from September through December. And the Earth Keepers compost folks are here, and if you have any questions about how that will work, then they'll be happy to tell you. I am giving them access to the people who have signed up for this program, and they will contact you directly to say, this is a perk that is being offered. Would you like it? You don't have to take it, but if you would like it, then they'll give you a code and tell you how to access their services. And if you have any other questions, then they're here for you to ask a question a bit later on. Also, I mentioned yard waste bags. Anybody who wants yard waste bags can get them. And if you're one of the first 300 households, which all of you are, then you're eligible to get one of these Leaf Buddies lawn chutes. They help keep the bag standing up, or you could lay it down and rake into it. And then the mouth of it is like a big funnel, and it just helps you get more bags into the leaves. Also, on Saturday, we will know who the top 2 neighborhoods with the most participation by August 1st are. And right now, as we saw, it's looking like Park Ridge East and Bryan Park, but you can change that if you want. You've got a couple of days, and it's not impossible because Park Ridge East, we've seen their participation double in the last week. So it can happen just like that. But the top 2 neighborhoods with the most participants will be offered the opportunity to locate one of the Green Camino or the Earth Keepers Bloomington compost drop-off enclosures right in their neighborhood. So if you don't want to handle the complexity of composting using kitchen waste, you can use this drop-off, and it'll be within walking distance instead of driving distance. The top 10 neighborhoods who win their matchups, when you registered for this program, you were offered the opportunity to challenge another neighborhood for who can set out the fewest number of yard waste bags per participant. And the top 10 neighborhoods who win their challenge matchups will be offered a kind of a garden in a box. And your options will be native plants, a pollinator garden, or a rain garden. And if you are one of the ambitious neighborhoods that's involved in a number of different matchups, then you'll be offered the opportunity to win one of these gardens. And we do have an exciting grand prize. The neighborhood with the lowest average number of yard waste bags set out for collection by participant gets a pizza party. Pizza for 100 people. The city will supply a sound system and a noise permit. And also Earth Keepers has very generously offered to offer some composting for this event as well. In order to participate in this, you must have at least 13 households registered by September 1st. That is very doable for all of you. We have a little bit more than 1 month, and that's lots and lots of time in order to make sure that you are in the running for this. So what are your next steps? Keep inviting people to register. Registration closes at midnight on the 1st of September. On the project page, answer the baseline information survey. I will also be sending you an email tomorrow that has kind of an information packet and restates a lot of this stuff. Answer that baseline survey so that we know how to prepare to support you in whatever your selected support options are. If you would like yard waste bags and one of the yard waste bag holders, go to the project page and complete that form so that we know who to deliver to. For this group of folks in August, we're going to deliver them in mid-August. And then as more and more people register through September 1st, then we'll get them to them within a couple of days of them filling out that form. Attend a demo. Our first demo is going to be on Wednesday of next week at the Community Orchard. If you haven't been there, it's an amazing place. It's beautiful, it's peaceful. It's referred to as an edible public park, which piqued my curiosity. It's just gorgeous. And they have a composting expert there who's going to be talking about how the orchard does their composting. On the project page, there's a link to a calendar with all of the demos, and we've got at least one a week starting next week. Keep on looking at your email for the Thursday updates. Hopefully all of you on here have been receiving the Thursday updates. I'll let you know when there's anything new that's been added to the project page. And now it's time for you. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen for just a little bit. And we will go to the chat. And see. Okay. One of our people on the line is asking, are there Facebook posts that you can share? That's a great question. I believe the Office of the Mayor has posted some things, but what I found to be more effective is on the bottom of every Thursday update email, I have information that you can share on your social media. I'm hoping that will be helpful. Am I still on here? Okay. Someone says, how have I not known about the existence of the Leaf Buddy all these years? Yeah, it's pretty great. I got one just to try it out. There are a couple of different models, and the model that we're using is one that you can get from Lowe's, and it's it's wonderful. It's so elegant and simple in its design, and I was really happy that we found them and that we were able to get them. Any other questions from the group? Anybody here? Go ahead and just post those in the chat. Oh, wonderful. We've got some great people involved in this. Our mayor, we have our state senator, Shelley Yoder. We have one of our council members, Isabel Piedmont Smith, also involved in this program. So people who are involved in the creation of policy are involved in this. And I find that really, really exciting. Jim Olson asks, is there a type of composting bin that's helpful for larger amounts of leaves? And in the FAQs that are on the project page, you can see some examples of the 3-bin concept that most of the composting experts recommend. And we will also, through our partnership with Monroe County Parks, actually be building compost bins out of pallets. We also have some resources and FAQs for where you can find free pallets around town. And someone says, rather than use green grass lawns to cover the ground, how can leaves be promoted to use as mulch? It also helps control water running after grain. Yeah, that's exactly what we're trying to promote here. Absolutely. So there are people who enjoy lawns, whether they have children who like to play there. I was walking to dinner from City Hall to Blooming Foods just down the way, and I was looking at the beautiful native plants that we have on one side, and then we've got some lovely lawn on the other side. And having that lawn allows us to have people gathering. So we've got kind of those steps that make kind of an amphitheater in front of City Hall, and it's lovely to have those combination of them. And we don't necessarily have to rake the lawn completely clean. We could mulch the leaves into the lawn. Norbert asked, can we give an overview of the mulching process? How much space is required? How often to turn? Other considerations? I'm so happy for this question because we have done an amazing job of curating this wonderfully rich content from the Soil and Water Conservation District, from the Citizens Advisory Council, from the Monroe County Solid Waste Management District, from Earthkeepers Compost, lots of different sources of information. And so I'd like to direct you to that project page and the FAQs that are on there. If you don't find your question answered, then you can either email me, my contact information will be also on the project page, or you can join the closed Facebook group that's only available to participants of this program and ask your co-participants in there. Thank you so much for all of these questions. This is great. And I know I'm pointing you to those resources. The pilot program is going to be for a couple of months, and I want to make sure that you're using the materials that are there and that are available. So these are not plants in the chat here. These are real people who are asking these questions and allowing me to tell you about the great work that our steering team and our subcommittees have been doing. Wonderful. We are just at about the halfway point, and I'd like to give Christy Lindberg and Jillian some time to talk about their programs. The relationship between what we're doing in this program and what Christy's doing with Adopt a Drain and with the Stormwater Grant Program is really intertwined. And so Christy can tell you a lot about that. Yes, I can post the link to the resource page in the chat. Christy, would you like for me to put up the slide also?
Sure, I think that would be good for folks to see, and then they could have a reference. Thank you.
Okay, really quickly, I'm going to post the resource link in the chat.
Yeah, you had I believe, a slide for that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Sorry, this is a little clunky, but we will get there. Thank you to everyone for your patience. Okay.
There we go. Thank you, Davta, and good evening, everyone. Nice to see so many folks joining us on this fine Thursday evening. My name's Christy Lindberg, and I'm a education specialist with the City of Bloomington Utilities. I just wanted to mention a few programs that we have that are compatible with 1000, as we call it. Number one would probably be, I would say, the Adopt a Drain program. That's where we ask citizens to help us with, as the name might imply, cleaning the storm drains, especially before a rain. As we know, the leaves can get into the drains and clog them. Leaves, cicadas, other things. And the program just really helps. All we ask is that for folks to go out and clean the drains. And once a quarter, we have just a very brief one-page report that we ask folks to fill out. And in the meantime, you'll be getting once a month notices from us with just nice little monthly tips and things like that, mostly seasonal. And then we do have a residential stormwater grants program, and that's where we offer money to those that have single family homes and pay our stormwater fee. It's a way of giving back and working with people to help solve their stormwater challenges, as we like to say. That program has been in existence from 2019, 2020, 2021, and we're working on 2022 now. Both of these, as you can see, have websites. I encourage you to visit them. And in addition, we are working on a new program, thanks to all the input that we've received from citizens. It's kind of a proactive way to address our challenges before us, including those with our changing climate. And that would be the Stormwater Education Series. That's in the works right now. We're in the process of putting together a little steering committee, and things are going very well. I recognize some faces here tonight, as a matter of fact. We all work together quite well to give back to our citizens and just help our community in any way that we can. And with that, I'll take questions if anybody has some, or you can put them in the chat.
Has anyone applied for the residential stormwater grants before?
We have
I was
about
really-
40 projects in existence right now, and about 20 people have already contacted us for next year.
Wow.
It's a very popular and competitive program. We're hoping for more funding in the future and more help.
Yeah, I remember the first time that it was opened and offered, they had set up at the City of Bloomington Utilities in their kind of conference area. They had set up maybe 20 chairs and the room was full to standing room only.
Yes, there's much demand, and we'll be having the public meetings such as like this one that we're hosting here, starting in December and January. And the deadline for applying for next year will be February 1st, 2022. But there's plenty of time to get going on it.
Yeah, and it's not too soon to start thinking about it too.
No, the sooner the better, really.
Thank you so much, Christy. I really appreciate the work that you've done on this committee, as well as all of the work that you're doing here. The Stormwater Education Series, I think, is going to be, the Homeowner Education Series is going to be really, really helpful for everyone.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Jillian, would you like to say a little bit about MC Iris and the mission of your organization?
Yeah, thank you, Dave. Good evening, everybody. MC Iris is a nonprofit group in Monroe County, and we help people learn about invasive plants and what that means to our forests, our wetlands, our web of life. And we like to start with maybe meeting people in person, maybe meeting people at an event, and offering some of our services. For example, we have a toolkit loan program that you can borrow tools from us. We have 8 kits available in Bloomington. We offer a free land survey to look at your property and help you identify which plants are invasive, which are native, which to encourage you to remove and control, and which plants to applaud, which will be the native plants. And so we are very active in Bloomington. We partner with lots of different organizations. One of them is City of Bloomington Parks and Rec, and the Hoosier National Forest, where we actually do hands-on removing of invasive plants. You work alongside people who are botanists, who know their plants, and I learn something all the time. So that's a way to help the forests and also help learn as well. So I love this program. I love 1,000 Households Who Mulch. We've uncovered a lot of benefits to do this. One that, of course, is dear to my heart is that when we actually keep the leaves on our own property, we're not sending them off in a great big truck to be dispersed somewhere else in the city. And that means we're not sending off our seeds and our berries that are from our invasive plants on our own property. So it's a big plus for keeping our invasive plants a little more isolated on our property and not spreading them. And that's a great plus, because that's where we're at. We're at trying to keep seed spread from spreading and popping up in other people's yards, and then they're spread by birds, flooding, the wind. So it's very important that we're isolating them. So love this program, love working with all of you. Thank you for partnering. You're making a really big difference by either expanding on what you already do, and that's mulching the leaves on your property, or you're composting, or this is the first time that you've stepped into this. So know that it's a layer, there's lots of layers, and I learn all the time. I don't learn everything on the first sweep. So I think that's an important thing, just to remind everybody that we're at different parts of learning about conservation and what we can do in our own yards. And like Debta said a little earlier, referencing Douglas telling me that one yard is connected to the next, and that makes up a lot of people in our neighborhoods, across the city, across the country. So people everywhere are learning and stretching themselves. So thank you. And if you've got any questions, I'd love to answer them specifically.
Thanks, Jillian. I want to point out to everybody, Jim Olson pointed out that there's a typo in the email address. That should be at gmail.com, not gmi.com. So please take note of that. And Jim is also saying that he's definitely interested in learning what invasive species are in his yard. So I'm sure that he will reach out to them.
Thank you.
And Randy Cox is talking about the weed wranglers.
Hi, Randy. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah, Yael is mentioning that making sure that everybody knows that you don't have to be an expert to get involved in this, that anyone at any level, and hopefully the 1,000 households who mulch, through the resources that we're providing and some of the yard consultations and the hands-on demos, hopefully we're lowering those barriers. So if you know people who are master mulchers and they think that they don't want to participate, we still want feedback from them. If you know people who think mulching and composting is only for hippies, then let them know that here's something that they can try with a lower barrier of entry.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with Yael saying that it can be intimidating, and even learning about invasive plants can be intimidating. And to that effect, we've had last year we focused on one woody invasive plant, Asian bush honeysuckle. We removed thousands and thousands of trees in Bloomington, in our parks, in our neighborhoods, and that's, I don't even know how many seeds we would have prevented from being spread. And then this year we have the purple winter creeper is our plant to focus on this year. It's a vine. So again, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to learn everything all at once. It can just be a step-by-step process. So we're all hoping that you can apply that to mulching and composting. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And Christine Carver is reminding everyone that fungi makes a healthy natural soil and supports the plant health. And when we mulch, we can capture some of that moisture and keep it in place to encourage the growth of that fungi. Thanks, Christine. And we have some really active and passionate people involved in both the steering team and a number of our subcommittees. One of them is Joe Winia, who is our Citizens Advisory Council representative to the Monroe County Solid Waste Management District. And Joe, would you like to say any remarks before we conclude tonight?
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you for the opportunity, Dave, and thank you for everyone who's attending. I did just want to speak a little bit more to that question that came up earlier about giving an overview for the mulching process and the space required, how often to turn, other considerations, and something that I think everyone can benefit from knowing, especially beginner mulcher and composters as well, is that the answer generally to all of those things is it depends, because there are a lot of factors. There's a lot of different amounts of leaves and a lot of different environments. And the good thing that I think everyone can know is that there are a couple of really basic overarching rules. And that is, one, you pretty much can't do anything wrong because everything will always decompose. And the other is it depends on how much effort you want to put into it. That's probably the biggest consideration. Is you can literally just leave them in place, which I've done in my own yard since last fall, and I've had things decompose right where they land. And then I use other leaves in my active kitchen scrap composting pile. And that only has taken up, I don't know, probably 2 cubic feet from the entire last 6 months that I've been doing it. So it depends on, yeah, if you want to do active or passive compost and how many leaves you have and how much food waste you have, but definitely know that it's always manageable and nature's always going to take care of it. So thank you. Yeah, thank you again, everyone, for getting involved in this.
Thanks, Joe. Joe
Yeah.
is one of the major contributors to a lot of the materials that you find in the FAQ and all of the links that go out to them. He did a lot of research about that. And also, Joe, do you have a blog about sustainability as well?
It is not a blog yet. It is a website, but there will be blog content as I get there. It is onesustainablejoe.com.
Okay,
One is
it's
the
One
numeral.
Sustainable Joe. Okay,
Mhm.
would you put that in the chat to everybody?
Sure.
Jill is, Jillian, you might look into the chat. Jill says that she's overrun by invasive honeysuckle and she doesn't have the ability to remove it herself or pay other people. So if it's possible to direct some wranglers over to her property, she'd be very interested in that. And we also have a question about whether or not it's a myth that leaves kill grass. Joe, I'm wondering if you would like to address that.
Yeah, I absolutely can. It's as simple as if the leaves are completely covering the grass for a long period of time, then yes, absolutely. They will get smothered and they will get lack of sunlight. But if they're mulched or like mowed into the grass and they're in a fine enough size that the grass can still have light access, then as long as there's not so much that it prevents light access, it will actually help the grass. It will decompose and eventually build soil content.
Great, thank you.
Dave, I'd like to I know I jotted down Jill's name, and I think a lot of people might feel that way, that they feel maybe overwhelmed. Angela Van Roy with HAND, Housing and Neighborhood Development, she can, HAND has partnered with MCIRIS. We know that we work better when we work together on projects, and that applies to neighborhoods too. When we help each other, we have noticed that we can get more done. We have a lot more fun doing it. And when we do it for the greater good, we actually feel more joy. So to that effect, we have partnered with HAND, and there's a grant, and it's a grant that works as a grant that supports neighborhoods within the city limits to remove their invasive plants and plant native. So it's actually, there's actually money to help you do that. And it's also a community builder too. So there's money and education. And then the part that comes together is that you meet neighbors that live just up the road from you that you had never met before. And it's an incentive to actually make friends, help each other, just like we're doing with the leaves. And the composting is bringing together people that can help you. And I can come to your neighborhood too and talk to you about what's going on in your yard and do a walking tour with your neighbors so that you can kind of start that process of figuring out, what do I really have how difficult is it really? And how do we prioritize, like which group of plants is the best for me to start working on? And do I need a work day with my neighbors? And that's a few neighborhoods have done that. My own neighborhood, Grandview Hills, we received a grant last year during 2020. So that was that was a great example of wondering how we could all work together and be socially distanced. This year, Elm Heights received a grant and is working on purple winter creeper, and Blue Ridge neighborhood also is working on a grant this year to remove Asian bush honeysuckle, and both neighborhoods are doing excellent. So it's a way, Jill, to help you and help your neighborhood, and then help with learning how to control specific invasives and how to dispose of them. So I hope we can meet and talk about it. Thank you.
Thanks, Jillian. It looks like a couple of people have experience with those grants. I know that Blue Ridge also recently did a work day and neighbors were helping neighbors. So that's really inspirational. And I love that connection, especially post-COVID. You know, we have an opportunity to connect with each other outside. Wonderful. Well, thank you to everybody again for spending some time with us on Thursday. And thank you for joining 1,000 Households Who Mulch. Please keep on encouraging people to join. The more diverse group of people that we can get to join, then the better data that we have to understand whether or not this is a possibility to move forward at the scale of the entire city. If you have any questions, my contact information is here, kidd@bloomington.in.gov. My extension here, 812-349-3552. And then the URL that you see above there, bloomington.in.gov/innovate/2021-leaves. That is the project page. And please continue to access the project page and keep on looking in your email inbox for the Thursday update, because that's where the latest and greatest information will be posted to. Thanks, everybody, and please do connect with all of us in the future. And yeah, Corey Wren says, let's mulch it, and I completely agree. Have a good night, everyone.